town halls.
Ooh. How do I send an invite to this channel? Oh, here we got it. Boom.
All right,
I'm
I'm gonna have to
gonna.
retweet this on Twitter as well.
20 seconds, y'all. Hope you're ready. All right. What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for being here at the very first Ronin Town Hall. Now, I am Ryan. I'm going to be the host today, and we are joined by two of the Ronin founders, Jihoz and Psycheout. Jihoz, would you like to say a few words about yourself before passing the mic over to Psycheout?
What up, everybody? I'm Jiho. I'm co-founder of Sky Mavis. Yeah, just excited to be here. Excited for the first Ronin Town Hall. It's been eventful time, so definitely good to check in with the community. Yeah, I think we'll go through some of the recent victories, talk through kind of the macro climate, Ron. What's been on everybody's minds. Yeah, so thanks for joining us, and yeah, excited to chat today.
All right. Thanks, Jeff and Ryan. Hi, everyone. I'm Alexander, also one of the co-founders. Lead the business side at Sky Mavis and Ronin. So happy to be here. Talk to you all about what's happening in the market, what's happening at Ronin, what we're excited about, and yeah, what we know that's hard, of course. So just want to show our face a little bit and make sure that you guys know we're here. As we always say, we're still building, and we're excited about the future. So definitely a lot to touch on here.
Yeah, there absolutely is. There's a lot to go through today. There's a lot to go through. And I guess we should hop right into it. About Ronin token and market overview. And yeah, obviously there's been a bit of a dip lately, but that doesn't necessarily define what like the overall view of the company, So
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe, Jeff, yeah, you want to go through some of the stats first, and then we can go into some more positive stuff, or, stats are positive too, but talk a little bit more general.
Yeah, sure. When there's something that I always like to look at when things are hard, which is a quote and something that Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, wrote, where he talked about how in 2001, all of Amazon's numbers, their data, was getting better. It was surging, and the numbers were much higher than they were the year before. However, the price of Amazon shares had decreased by around 80%, right? You were seeing the pop or the decline of basically everything that was an internet company at that time, regardless of whether it was good or bad. The money was just fleeing the market at that time. And in a lot of ways, I see similarities with Ronin, right? How could the price of Ron be where it was, last year or almost a year and a half ago when we've made so much progress, right? The Ronin wallet has been downloaded over 18 million times. And we have over 1.5 million monthly active addresses, right? Activity on Ronin right now is actually higher than it was during the Axie boom, right? We've seen tons of new builders come onto Ronin with the transition to permissionless Ronin, right? We've gone from 75 teams and developers building on Ronin to 140, right? So it's almost basically doubling of the number of builders. So how could this be happening? How could Ron be going down? Well, when you have to also always take into account the macro environment. Right now, over the last 3 months, alts have been really, really destroyed, right, against Bitcoin. And we're seeing a lot of issues, right, or with the macro environment with tariffs. And, we have to be also honest about where gaming sits on the risk curve. Right? Gaming is one of the most experimental, is basically the most experimental and kind of innovative subset of the crypto market. That means that when things are going really well and there's a lot of liquidity coming into the market, gaming tends to do really well. So I was looking at the data of which sectors performed the best in the 45 days after Trump won. And it was actually AI and gaming, right? Those were actually the two sectors that performed the best in the 45 days right after. So that shows, right? When liquidity is going well, gaming and Ron are performing well. However, when liquidity dries up, gaming, AI, meme coins, all of these things basically decline, especially relative to Bitcoin. And so that's basically how I see it, right? Where our data continues to get better, we continue to attract more developers. These are the things that matter the most in the medium to the long term. However, right,
Yeah.
like markets in the short term can be very irrational, right? So markets in the short term can be a voting machine, a popularity contest, or just based on the whims of the market. Whereas in the long run, right, we've built this ecosystem to do better as we get more players, we get more developers, we get more traction on the chain, we get more usage of Ron. And that's not also to mention that, we actually set up the Ron token to continuously, right, earn fees in the treasury as the protocol gets more used. That's actually not the case with most protocols, right? So basically, a portion of all ERC20 volume on Ronin is going into the treasury. A portion of all the NFT volume is going into the treasury. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I think it's a pretty good high level summary of where we are today when we just look at the general traction of Ronin, right? I mean, there's a lot of builders that are coming in, and when I was at GDC, I met so many people who were building on Ronin who I had never even talked to before, and to me that was amazing because even when we look back in building Axie, creating Ronin, we were always quite protective about letting other people build with us. In hindsight, perhaps that was a little bit of a mistake, and we should have been more open earlier. But we've unfortunately had to say no to so many different teams. I would say probably over 1,000 different developers have wanted to build on Ronin. On the bright side, we now have 140 or so. But I think it's just amazing to see so many people actually using the network and wanting to work with us and build with us. So I jokingly say that I feel like an evangelist for Ronin, where I'm just kind of going around and clapping for all the developers that are building with us. And the way that I think about it is the way that we succeed from Ronin perspective is if that developers that are building with us, they succeed. So that means game developers that are going to market with their launches. That means other DeFi application developers, SocialFi. Basically, what we want to do is we want them to succeed, launch into a active user base, which are then going to use their products and learn to love them, just as they love Axie and the other games that we have right now. And I think we have a lot of education to do throughout the space to actually show other developers that there is a lot of users here. And I really want to highlight some of the metrics that you said when it comes to the wallet. So if you can put that up on the screen here, the wallet has actually been downloaded. The Ronin wallet has been downloaded over 18 million times. Now those are some insane numbers, and close to 6 million of those downloads are on mobile. I would probably say that's in the top 5 of all blockchain wallets. Now I don't have those metrics right in front of me, but those numbers are actually pretty crazy. So when we start to talk to other developers outside of Ronin, they actually don't know about this. So it's actually our job to educate people more and more and more about the users that we have here, because the distribution that we have from Ronin perspective is probably the biggest sales point that we have. The community, you guys, right? And when I look at the Ronin community and the Axie community from the past, I see a lot of shared victories, but I also see a lot of shared suffering. And what makes me happy about that is that the shared suffering and the shared victories, these are moments that we've had together, that we've gone through and been building in the space. We've been hacked, we've survived that. We've kept staying on the path, the building path, and just walking the road and trying to make this entire ecosystem into something. And for all of you guys who are in this community still, after all of these things that we've gone through, that is actually the foundation for the future of Ronin, and actually what I think will bring us to the highest of highs. So when I compare it to, let's say, for example, Solana, like the deepest of despairs, that was actually just shortly after the FTX hack, or the FTX kind of blowout, for those of you guys who remember that. And that, I think, actually rallied the community together at such a deep level, which is very, very similar to what I think we have in Ronin. And that, to me, is something that is almost impossible to replicate without time, right? So in some sense, time is difficult to handle, and like it's very abstract. We don't really know what's going to happen in 3 to 5 to 10 years. But the fact is that we have like 7 to 8 years of history throughout Axie, throughout Ronin now, is an incredible advantage. And I think we actually saw a big part of that happen when the meme coin launches happened with Tama meme, because we saw so many cultural things kind of appear out of Tama.meme. Now, of course, some of them have kind of evolved into Ronke, which is super interesting. But even the Coco token, I think Cloudwhite has its own token. Like, there's a lot of history here that maybe some of you guys who are newer into Ronin don't really know about. But I usually say that without Coco, for example, Axie and Sky Mavis wouldn't have been here. So there's a lot of history and a lot of things that connect us all, that are building in this community, that are building and trying to really make this into something bigger. And it has to really start with us. Everyone who's in this stage and in this room and listening on Twitter here, you're all a part of this kind of movement, and spreading this around to the developers, so that they can actually see that there are real people here, there are real buyers here, and there are people that they should be serving. They should be coming to Ronin to give you guys better experiences, to give you guys new things to do on chain. And it's our job, from the Ronin side and from Sky Mavis side, to enable those developers to succeed. So I'm really excited about this kind of next step into the Ronin Network's future, where we are now more open, we're more collaborative, and the best part is we can actually get like some amazing business deals as well. For example, such as the OpenSea partnership, where actually some parts of the revenue, that every single trade that's happening on OpenSea, is going right into the Ronin protocol treasury. Now that is incredibly unique if you think about it from like a industry perspective. And I think that has also largely been ignored from the industry, which is something that that we actually need to do a better job of highlighting. So, when I look out at the Ronin Twitter and like the crypto Twitter, where people are either they're super happy about Ronin, they're complaining about price, all of those things, right? I do what Jeff said. Like, I look at the fundamentals, I look at the community. Are we better today than what we were yesterday? That's actually one of the key things that we need to remember. Do we show up every day? Do we go to the Ronin gym or whatever else that might be your passion in life? But you still have to keep improving. And I think that's really how you build a strong foundation and a strong network. And we have to kind of face it, right? This is not an easy path what we're on here. Building Axie on its own, like building a crypto game, is super, super difficult on its own. But building a blockchain network, something that can onboard millions of users, if not hundreds of millions of users, if not every single human being in the world into crypto, that is incredibly difficult. And it requires everyone who's in here to actually believe that this can be done, that we can bring in all the developers, that we can provide great services, tools, games, user experiences for new people. So that's really what I'm passionate about now.
Yeah, yeah. There's been like despite the lull in the market, I mean, there's been nothing but growth from the Ronin side. I mean, there's been so many new developers hopping on Ronin since Permissionless came out about 2 months ago, and we've seen quite a few like gaming victories. Most recently with the partnership between Fishing Frenzy and Sky Mavis.
Yeah. So I have a disclaimer here before we kind of continue. I was an early seed investor in Uncharted, or the creators of Fishing Frenzy. I followed along with Derek. Derek's background is from Guild of Guardians. He was working with Mutable before. And then now he's working with Ronin. And the funny thing is, like, when he says that there's massive differences working with these different type of teams, right? Me and Jeff, we work together on the publishing side of Sky Mavis, where our goal is developer empowerment and actually giving these game developers the highest chance of success, right? So we help them launch into the market, make it sure that maybe they don't sell too much NFTs, maybe try to guide them on the path to creating more solid token economies. Basically, a lot of advisory and those kind of services that maybe game developers are needing. And there are certain game developers that are more receptive to the feedback that we have. I think Jeff has a great creator kind of guidelines to what different types of game developers should be doing when they go to market on Ronin, so that they can enable these developers to actually succeed. Fishing Frenzy has been one of them. I think Cambria has also been doing really well in terms of actually educating the creators so that they can create even better informational kind of videos about the game to their communities, right? So a lot of what we do here is we try to educate developers so that they can educate their communities, and from there on out, they can have a bigger chance of succeeding. And the great thing about Fishing Frenzy and Derek and JW from that team is they are very iterative. They want to experiment. They're very excited about seeing something get loved on Ronin. And it's not only them, right? We have many other developers that are iterative and do that too. Runeterra, Forgotten Ruins. I think Fableborn is another great example. So, I mean, there's a lot of these type of developers that want to work with us, and I actually take our feedback seriously because we have a lot of learnings that we have from Axie that we want to impart to these developers. So Fishing Frenzy, right now, they're all the rage from our side because, of course, we decided to fund them. And this is actually not public, but I'll share a little bit about how we work with some teams. Is Sky Mavis makes investments as well. I think we've invested about $10 million in various teams so far. We haven't really announced that publicly. Some teams do end up announcing that we are partnered in some way. Some of these teams get grants from us. There's a lot of different things. So we work to support the ecosystem. We want builders to build with us, and we want them to succeed because there is this concept in startup terms, which is called a net promoter score. A net promoter score basically means that how likely is the partner to recommend you to another studio or to another customer. So our goal here is that all of the studios that are building on Ronin, all of the application developers, that they have like a 10 out of 10 experience building with us, with our tools, with our services, with everything else that we have, so that they are promoting us to their other friends and developers. Now that's easier said than done, right? We have a lot of things that we still need to improve on. I saw some guys having issues with Ronin Waypoint. I have some great news there. Ronin Waypoint and the Ronin Wallet, yeah, they're going to be merged together. It's going to be an amazing experience in the end of it. So very excited about that. So it's
wait, I just wanted to interject. That basically, right, a lot of the issues that we have with Waypoint is like we have Waypoint and we have Ronin Wallet, and it's very confusing the fact that they're basically split together, right? So basically, by kind of merging them together, it will become a way more seamless experience.
Seamless, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we want to, the goal that we have is how can we make the products that we have so seamless and great so that every developer that's building on Ronin, they will be using them. So one thing that we actually were internally having discussions about is, when we open up Ronin, what about the competitors? What about like OpenSea or MetaMask or other things like that that are now coming onto Ronin? What we started to realize is like it's actually great for us to have more competition for our internal products as well, because it forces them to be even better. And what it means is that we're going to create a bigger pie. So we need to be more open so that the pie can keep growing. So that's a little bit of some of the reasoning for also choosing to open up Ronin.
I'll just go through some of the, I'll talk about Fishing Frenzy a bit, maybe, right? So from a personal point of view, I'm actually playing Fishing Frenzy every day. And I've got the battle pass. I'm getting my frenzy points. I believe I'm in like the top 1,000 or so on the frenzy points leaderboard. And I actually really like it because as someone who's pretty busy and I don't have like a ton of time to be gaming, on your average day on the weekdays, I know I can just come in, spend my energy really quickly. I can do the 5x energy boost and basically spend my energy faster, and basically finish my session within 5 to 10 minutes or so, and potentially catch something really fun, right? So I'm basically able to experience the full session really quickly. It's relaxing. I feel like I'm touching water, and I've been really impressed with how the team has executed. They just shipped, right? They just actually shipped a new event today called the Ronin Reef. So, I've seen that all over my timeline as soon as I woke up. So make sure to check that out. And yeah, I think it's a very good. It's a game that's basically perfectly fitting for the time where people are stressed out, they're feeling anxious. Uh, Also they launched when memes had just launched on Ronin. So, I think it's a perfect type of game where when you're feeling a little bit stressed out, you want to reconnect with nature. This is a way to do it straight from your phone, straight from the comfort of your own room. And you know, what is going to attract more good builders to Ronin is if we can have teams that come to Ronin actually succeed. And that's what we're seeing with Fishing Frenzy, right? So this is one of the games that actually came as part of Open Ronin. They were able to demonstrate to value, and that they were actually successful and actually executing. We're then able to elevate them and double down and invest in them, right? So they saw a 560% increase in players when coming to Ronin. Their daily active addresses went from 10K to 40K. They saw a 12x increase in revenue. I believe that they're around $150,000 in revenue in just the recent season. Uh, the the founder passes have also done really well. They minted for 120 RON. They're already at 535 RON floor price, give or take. And so this is a case study of a team that's come to Ronin and has done what they said they were going to do. And similarly, we have provided value. They're the perfect example of a type of team that we can help a lot. And boom, other developers see this success and they are then attracted to come to Ronin. And that really kickstarts this virtuous cycle.
Yeah, I think what I like about Fishing Frenzy and I think that, and I've said this before in different stages, and I think I even had a couple of tweets about this, right? Is why is it so attractive for Sky Mavis and for Ronin about these teams that maybe visually aren't as pleasing as, let's say, like the AAA games, or it really depends on like how you see the games, right? So well, I'll share some of how I think about like like games, I guess. I think that games have usually three kind of main pillars. So you have one pillar which is the gameplay, right? You have another pillar which is the game economy, and then you have the last pillar which is probably graphics. Um, and I'm much more fond of teams that are focusing more on the gameplay side and the game economy side, and making sure that those two things really fit together. And then like they spend some time on the graphics, but it's more on the focus of having a beautiful art direction rather than like some AAA amazing graphics. Because if you actually have amazing graphics you have a game economy and you have great gameplay, like first of all, the go to market or the time to create that type of game could be 3 to 5 years. The cost to create those games are like 50 to 70 million dollars, and then the likelihood of those games failing are astronomically high because you are implementing so many different new things, particularly on the game economy side, which is actually what a lot of the faulty things that have happened in crypto games has been a function of. Because people have been experimenting on the wrong thing, I would say, and they have been going to market too late, where maybe the meta game of the market has shifted already. So that's why I really like iterative teams that are really have a pulse on the market, can do things that can try out new technology. I know, Jeff, you're a big fan of ERC, the limit break, the ERC 20 C, I guess. I'm sure I'll give you some time to talk about that. But I love the fact that people are experimenting more on the game economy side to create solid loops and then tie that directly into the gameplay, and then from there on out you can create solid games and iterate really fast. And that's what I like, for example, about Fishing Frenzy. I think Cambria is great about doing that. I think hopefully the Runiverse will also be able to do more stuff that's like tied directly into the Web3 side, because that to me is how you get the best possible data and how you can actually get find out what should you be doubling down on as a developer. Jeff, you want to talk about ERC, the ERC 20C token?
Sure. I mean, so one of the things that I always think about is, oh, right, like, what do we have as potential catalysts to get us out of a bit of this, right, funk, right? And I see the biggest issue with Web3 gaming right now being, right, like, how do we solve play to earn? Because we've seen, right, that there are still issues with the model, right? Where, okay, if you get a lot of users, that doesn't necessarily mean that the token will do well, because, right, like, these games are attracting users as well as bots and AI, right, via token incentives. So then the more users a game has, that also, means more sell pressure for the token, right? And so far, no project has really been able to truly figure this out. And I believe that this comes down to one fundamental issue in the space, which is tokens are really good. Why, when we think about the first principles of why should a game even have a token, which you need to think about a lot, especially in an environment where tokens aren't doing very well. Why does having an ERC 20 token make sense for a game? I think we're best positioned to answer this. Why? Because we're the first ones that did this, right? When we started, nobody cared about NFTs and nobody cared about gaming, what crypto gaming. What made people care about it was when they started to experiment with adding tokens, SLP and AXS. These were both fundamentally very innovative tokens for slightly different reasons. But in general, right, people became way more interested in gaming when you added some ERC 20 tokens to them. So why would a game even have a token, right? From first principles, right? So let's try to think about, what did we think about before we even did this, right? Before we had any evidence that it might work. The thing that we were thinking about is we wanted to give users and gamers an incentive to help the game grow. We wanted users to feel like they were owners of the games that they were playing, and for that to actually be reality. So that was, right, a lot of the thinking behind the AXS token, right? Well, if Sky Mavis is the only ones who own, right, Axie or have some ownership in it, it's going to be a lot harder for us to win on our own. We need to have the community, right, fully incentivized to actually help. They're doing a lot of work, but we need to make that worth their time, especially in the long run. So you want to align long-term incentives. That's why you would have a token. But the issue is, right, as you start to give out the token, people start to min-max, they start to try to exploit the system. So as you give out tokens to your long-term believers, you're basically paying this tax to the botters, to the exploiters, people using AI and artificial intelligence to basically farm the tokens as well. And these people are not here for the long term, right? They're just trying to farm the tokens and they're trying to sell, basically creating a lot of issues. So ERC20C is a token standard that basically allows you to modify an ERC20 token and make it more programmable. You can add way more logic into it. It's almost like turning a token into a mini smart contract. So in this way, right, you can basically create, for example, a version of pixels or AXS that, it can be staked to align incentives for the long term, and it can also be spent in game, but right, it cannot be sold immediately, right? Or you need some reputation unlocks to actually be able to sell the token. Or if you want to sell it really quickly, maybe you can, but there would be a fee that actually increases, right? Like protocol treasury, or increases the amount of tokens being burned. And so I believe that this is a pretty substantial breakthrough, right? Let's also remember that this is coming from the team that invented ERC 721C, which is basically used by all new NFT projects right now to ensure that creator royalties are being paid. And so this is something that I believe can actually solve play to earn, because it allows for teams to issue tokens and to have actually higher rewards, while ensuring, right, that you're weeding out a lot of the short-term speculators, or the bots, or the farmers. And so I think that this is actually a pretty huge breakthrough, because right, aside from just having more games, right, like we actually need a game to be able to surpass the level of traction that Axie, that Pixels had, but to do it in a way that, right, like is lasts even longer. We've had like the two most successful examples on Ronin so far of a Web3 game economy, but there are still issues that need to be solved. And actually, right, like focusing on solving those issues is actually what will get us to the next level of traction. Right, add some zeros to the amount of traction that we have in the long run. And so I believe that ARC20C or something like it will be really key to enabling us to actually figure out Web3 long-term token economics. This is also included with, right, things that we're seeing work well in Cambria right now, which is like risk to earn, real stakes, PvP, real loss. These are actually, right, high-level economic principles that we know should work in Web3 gaming, because they work in games like EVE Online, right? The EVE Online economy is really held up and made sustainable via war, via real loss, people's stuff basically being destroyed as they attack each other. And so, yeah, I really think that innovation is key. And, a lot of people will be like, having more games, right? We've already had a lot of games. We already have all the most Web3 games. And, it hasn't gotten us to, right, an exponential level of traction compared to the past. And I think there's some, right, fairness in that. And I do believe that, right, where has the innovation from Sky Mavis, from Ronin, from Axie always come from? It's not actually really at the game design or the game level. It's always been at the token incentive level, right? We're the ones who invented having a token for a game. Therefore, right, and really refined a lot of the ways about how to distribute it. So it therefore follows logically that, right, in order to get to the next level, we need to double down on the innovation that we've always been best at, which is basically innovation at the token incentive layer. And so I'm actually really excited about this. And this is a way that I see to basically having games that surpass the level of traction that we've ever seen in crypto gaming, as well as on the Ronin network.
Yeah, and we are using a lot of these, the learnings and the thought processes that we have to implement in the new Axie MMO, which I jokingly said that I haven't been as bullish on any Axie game in years, maybe even since the first Axie game, like when I decided to join Axie back in late 2017. I liked the classic game to an extent. Origins was never really fully my type of game, but I'm super bullish on the new Axie MMO. So I think that's going to be great. I just want to talk a little bit more about like kind of the game economy side, and because I talk to many founders and that want to build with Ronin, and it's very difficult for many, I think, Web2 founders to grasp, or Web2 games founders to think about like the game economy in the same way that we do at Sky Mavis and Axie and Ronin. Is every game is almost inherently an MMO, even if you don't think about it like that, because everything has a shared economy, and the timeline begins when the first asset goes to market, because some people can get ahead in some way just by owning these early assets. I think that the natural stage for Web3 games is to be very MMO-like in terms of the game flows and the way that the resources are required to harvest something, and to kind of go that entire logistics chain until it actually gets refined into something new. My hunch has always been that most of these resources, most of these things should be tokenized in some sense. I believe in free markets. So it's interesting to think about like these ERC20C tokens as more closed market loops. And then I start to think about what does it mean for free markets if the tokens cannot be traded on, for example, centralized exchanges. Because when we look at SLP, for example, the intention for SLP, or nobody knew that it would get listed on Binance, but arguably a part of the reason why Axie succeeded so massively was because SLP actually got listed on Binance. So I think that with tokens that are very open, you can have magical things that happen as well. So I think there cannot be only like closed loops. You have to have open tokens. You have to do a lot of experiments and be open to some of them failing. And I think that is a lot about the expectation and the management that we do to the communities, right? And when we look back at the initial distribution of SLP, Sky Mavis and Axie, we were not the ones who created the first liquidity pool for SLP, right? That was actually the player base. SLP was trading for much lower than I think it was today, even at the beginning, because people were just experimenting with it. They were trying something new with the tech. And I think a little bit of the problem right now is that the expectation of some of these tokens is so high from the community that you are actually having trouble getting some really key data. So yeah, I guess like we'll stop there from the game economy side, but I think like that's some of the discussions that we have with the teams that we work with closely, from a Sky Mavis perspective, to see like how can we help them think a little bit differently and integrate crypto in novel ways, to kind of tap into what we think is the biggest strength is the token distribution, right? How do we give tokens to players in new and novel ways and reward the people that are actually in these games to play and have fun and to give back, right, rather than only extract. So there's a lot of those things that we spend a lot of time on, which I'm very excited about to see the end result of. Another thing that I'm spending a lot of my time on is the Ronin ecosystem developer ecosystem. So I do want to touch a little bit on that too, because we get a lot of questions all the time. Is like, how do we what about the token price? What can you do? Can you buy back? Can you can you pump the token price, right? Why is Ronin not performing, right? So I always go back to the fundamentals, right? Are more developers building on Ronin? Do we have net new users coming in? Is there revenue? Are these people actually spending money, or are they only extracting? And from there on out, we have to kind of give ourselves a realistic picture. What are the other catalysts that can actually take this network into mainstream, which is the goal, right? And I do say that my vision for Ronin is to bring every single human being on chain. I think the way we do that is we have a diehard community of people who love Ronin. So that's kind of what we're focusing on. And we need to spread the word that people can launch into real players, real people that want to use their applications. But that kind of work if everyone is cheating, so to say. Like, if the first thing you guys do when you get a token, you're like, oh fuck it, like you're just gonna sell everything immediately, right? That is a pretty bad feeling too. So I think like that is what we have to educate also the community about. That obviously, like if you get something, maybe don't sell everything immediately, right? This is not financial advice or anything like that, but listen, nobody ever made it in life by selling everything that they had immediately, right? You have to believe in something. You have to hold on to some assets over time and see what happens. These are just kind of the facts, right? So, maybe try some products. If you get some tokens, sure, sell a little, but probably not a good idea to sell literally everything that you guys are getting.
Also say, right, like, I actually think, right, like that the real gamers and the real believers are predominantly holding, right? One of the issues that we see in the games, right, is that actually the property rights of the real gamers are basically being infringed on by AI, by these bots that are coming in and basically, right, like stealing tokens from the protocol and the ecosystem and then selling them. Uh, and right, so better ways to figure out how to prevent that type of behavior, I think is important because I do believe that, right? Uh, and when you look at the data, right, it's like the actual real gamers are predominantly holding way more than right the people who are basically exploiting the system and creating a lot of bots and creating a lot of basically using like artificial intelligence, right, to infringe on the rights of humans. So that's kind of one of the ways that I think about ERC20C because people were like, oh, like, are you technically right, like making right, like people less free by adding some constraints to these tokens? Is like, well, no, because I actually see their property rights as being infringed upon by right these botters, by these AI that are coming in and basically stealing tokens from the rest of the community.
Yeah, and exactly, like that's always what we try to avoid. We actually want to reward the real humans and you guys who are here so that you can take part in the value that's being created here. That's always been the part of the goal here, because we think that every human being, right, you have an unlimited potential to create something to take Ronin to the next level. But bot, or if the tokens just go into the hands of like one person when they're intended to go into the hands of like 10,000, like obviously that one person can enrich himself or herself, but the 10,000 people that would get those tokens, they would be able to do something much much bigger, right? Evangelize the network outwards, right? Sometimes when you come into crypto, you start to think like, holy crap, is this real? Like, are people just giving me money? I mean, yes, you get money, but more than that, you get ownership or something meaningful, a stake in a decentralized protocol that can be something much more in the future than it is today, right? They are trying to buy your attention so that you care about it enough to research into it and to learn about it. And I think that's really where we have to go back into the core of like what is exciting about this tech as well, is there's a lot of different things to learn here, right? And I think that's where Sky Mavis and Ronin and actually we have a very important place in the ecosystem. We're educators in many ways. When I look back into the Axie, mega boom, I was actually, I think from a founder perspective, we do everything, right? We try to help. How can we make sure that, the system is up? I remember I was reading the Hello Axie Infinity email. People were sending hundreds of emails in there. And some of those emails were like private keys of people, seed phrases in the top of the email. Like that's the level of education of new people that are coming into the ecosystem that we need to teach them, right? I think last time when there was something that was booming, we actually failed in terms of educating them. So a lot of people that came into Axie, they got educated by like the first wave of adopters. And that first wave of adopters, they co-opted the vision that we had for Axie, and maybe they were educating them into something else, right? You can make a shitload of money fast, or whatever they were saying, right? Now that was never really the core, vision for Axie. We wanted to make a game that we wanted to play, and we wanted to have like an open economy, and then the economy really took off from there. So that's like some of the pros and cons here. The risk is that it can crash, but on the pro side, it can become super big and really become the foundation for something great, which is what we're trying to do here. So yeah, I think that was like a little bit of everything here. Have you seen some like great questions in the chat? Maybe we can take something if there is something. There's a lot of Ronke spam. Believe in
Ronke is
something
never
spam.
spamming.
Oh no, yeah, I didn't mean spam actually. I meant like strong support from Ronke. That's right.
There's a couple
What
Q&A
else?
questions I can read out here.
Yeah, let's see if there's something on the. Yeah, I mean, let's see. And Jeff, before we kind of move into necessary Q&A, is there something that you wanted to touch on? I think we've touched on app tokens, solving play to earn a little bit, maybe Ronin profiles. Maybe you want to chat a little bit about that.
So yeah, another thing that we're exploring and doing some research on right now, right, is basically how do we create some kind of universal reputation system for Ronin, right? Like boom, you have one account, uh, and you're basically getting, right? We've kind of seen this a little bit with Guild XYZ, but that was not really super. That was kind of done by a different team, right? So we're thinking about, right, basically having like a Ronin profile that's like truly integrated, built by us, integrated into the Ronin wallet. It basically serves as, right, a reputation system. It could amplify your rewards. It can basically help you get whitelists and get special offers from different teams, and more, right? Like, let us know what you think. Um, but yeah, we're also, right, like, this is something that's been really requested by many people in the community, right? It's like, I want a Ronin profile, right? Like, I think one of the really powerful things, right, is the idea of a social graph in crypto, right? So what is a social graph? Like, a social graph is basically a network of people and how they relate to each other via common actions, right? So, for example, Instagram, which many of you guys probably have, is like a social graph based on, right, the images that and now reels that people like. Right. And so basically you relate to people or you get shown content based on what you've previously liked and expressed interest in. I think that the opportunity in crypto, right, and especially on Ronin, is basically a social graph or a kind of a social network where people get linked to each other and to projects based on what they've done in the past, what transactions they've made, what NFTs they've collected. And right, there's actually so much value in that data that then, right, like, allows developers to know, right, who to target, who to give free stuff to or to give promotions to, or to give whitelists to, for protocols. Oh, we're doing an airdrop campaign, right? Like, oh, these people might have boosted points, right, because they have like really good reputation and they've shown to be really good community members in the past. That's something that's still really lacking on Ronin, but I think it's shows there's a lot of room for improvement there. And I think from the early Axie days, right, we've always seen what we were building here is kind of like a social network of gamers, right? Like, if we can create a social network of gamers and collectors and people that actually know how to use crypto, right, there's a lot of value there. And I believe that does need to be unlocked more. So.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about those things too. Or, what I like is, I think what we have to find out, what is the role of the Ronin network ecosystem, right? We want to empower developers. We will be spending even more time around events, doing various hackathons, kind of making sure that a lot of the applications that are coming onto Ronin are created by developers that are loyal to Ronin and that want to create their mark on the Ronin network ecosystem. And that also means that there will be new tokens for those products, and the users of those products maybe will be eligible for token drops as well. So that's how I think about kind of creating a wealth effect on Ronin. So, like, there is something to say about, like, when we look at Compound, for example, like, why do we need Compound as like one of the core DeFi principles? Why don't we just have like another fork of Compound and we call it something else that's created by a group of Ronin holders? Like, there is some key things that need to be created by really blue chip kind of teams, because the risk is so high that if it's deployed by a newer team, it could be very detrimental to the entire growth of the network. So what we try to find out is, like, how can we support new developers go out into these hackathons, share like all of the tools and services that we have with them, so that they know what they're expecting when they're building on Open Ronin. What kind of support can they get from us? So I actually saw a question from Megan BG in the chat here, who's asking like, what kind of support do you provide to games building on Open Ronin? And I think it's a great question. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about it. But rather than answering it only for games, I want to talk about it from a application perspective in general, right? Of course, like games is our bread and butter. It's what we know the most of. It's like where we revolutionized the space to an extent and kind of made our mark in the world with. So we have a really deep level of understanding of like, or at least a good thesis for what we think will be successful, right? So we have on all internal teams, our games publishing teams that are working like with the partners that we have invested in and that we give grants on. Like that's called like direct publishing. And then we have other teams that are building on Open Ronin, where the biggest thing that we do there is we track them, we give them feedback, or we give them help when it comes to integrating our wallets, our tools, our other services, and then they get like a direct line with us if they have great traction. So here it is. Here's the key, right? It has to be kind of a quid pro quo where the teams that are building on Open Ronin, if they find some traction in the community, that's when we will be like, oh, wait a minute, these guys are building with us. That means that we need to spend even more time uplifting them and like giving them more access to our internal advisory services, even calls with me and Jeff sometimes, and even money as well from an investment perspective. So that's actually what we want to do with other developers as well. And we are doing it too when it comes to giving them grants. For example, Liquid Rom, we had like a grant system for them. So that was Al who made it. I think he spoke with both me and Jeff beforehand. So we actually gave him a grant so that he was able to audit the protocol before it was going live on Ronin. Super happy about that. I'm a big believer in Liquid Rom. I think we'll see many, many great use cases for Elrond down the line. It's just easier, it's better, it's more liquid, right? I mean, it means that you can spend Ron while having it staked. It unlocks for new opportunities, and that actually adds TVL in these other TVL tracking websites, which is historically been a little bit difficult for us to get like high TVL there because they don't they only track like DeFi TVL. They don't track TVL for let's say what's in the bridge, for example. So it's a very different thing. So yeah, I think it's a good question. Also had another one. I think it was who was that? His name was starting with S. Sadatobi Tsushinobi. Yeah, he was asking like, can we have Mavis Pay live again? It would be helpful. Funny story there is we've been I was the the person who was trying to push Mavis Pay for like two couple of years ago. Unfortunately, it was a little bit too early. We didn't have the capacity to get it over the finish line. Now we have like discussions about Mavis Pay again, where the idea is that people can pay with Ron, and we definitely want to try to see if we can get it done. But there has been challenges there as well. So no promises, but it's really an interesting use case, and I think that providing tools and the opportunity for people who are doing shops around the world to integrate with Ronin in an easy way, I think is going to be really key. Because when we look back in time, and I think this is such a great story always to talk about, is people who onboarded into Axie, they earned SLP tokens and they earned Axie tokens in the Philippines. And in the Philippines, certain places they were buying and selling or buying chicken on the street with the Ronin wallet using SLP tokens. And I think it's just amazing because it's such a precursor to what will happen in the future if we succeed even more, right? Because what is more natural? You have your money inside the Ronin wallet that you've earned inside the games or been spending in DeFi, and of course the retailers around the world will want access to your money. Like that to me is like a very natural thing, and that's exactly what happened. We didn't do anything there. But we really want to support those kind of use cases as well. So now we've seen what the future looks like. Now we just need to execute even better and get back into the limelight when it comes to traction. And when that happens, I think we're going to see something amazing.
I think I saw one question about some of the traction or success that we've had around DeFi. I'm not sure if we covered that slide. Maybe we can bring that slide up, Ryan. You have with like the basically DeFi traction so
Compound
far.
one? Probably.
There should be one that says kind of like compound, the new TVL added. Yes. So yeah, I want to give first of all, I want to give a huge shout out to Owl, right? Owl really took an idea, right, kind of on a whim, that he, picked up for me and Alex, and really ran with it. And he's delivered something that has over $6 million in TVL. And then that shows the power of the community, right? Where we cannot do it alone. In fact, if we have to do it alone, it's not going to work. And right, Owl is an amazing example of someone who, right, saw an opportunity, saw a way to help the network, and pounced on it. Also, obviously, right, there's a viable right path to a business as well there. So he's done an amazing job. Definitely check out right the full story. He wrote it up. It's pinned on his Twitter. But yeah, huge shout out to Owl on Liquid Ron. And I guess, for those that might not be familiar, what is Liquid Ron? Liquid Ron basically is a protocol that allows you to unlock the liquidity in your Ron, right? Because when you stake your Ron, you actually cannot do anything with it, right? Because it's stuck staked there. But actually, what a Liquid Ron allows you to do is you basically right stake your Ron with the Liquid Ron protocol. The Liquid Ron protocol will then give you a Liquid Ron token that represents your position, your staked Ron position, and you can then right use that in DeFi. You can you know use that to basically get a loan in the future, right? You basically have unlocked this liquidity. And so, huge shout out to Owl on this. And yeah, I think if you want to go back, right? So we've actually seen right Compound, the first big DeFi protocol, migrate to Ronin, and boom, right? We've had over $7 million of TVL added. We've also seen a big migration of liquidity from Katana V2 to the Katana V3. And so, people are always, I want to address one thing, right? Like, because some people come to me like, oh, Gio, like you guys are in gaming. Why are you guys even focused with doing anything with DeFi? Right. But as Alex mentioned, right, the bigger vision is to use gaming as a way to introduce everyone to crypto, not just gaming, right? Or not just Web3 gaming, but all of crypto, all of the amazing innovations that are happening. And aside from gaming, the most interesting stuff that's happening in crypto that's actually of real use is happening in DeFi. An amazing story from early in our network is how so many of the early Axie community members from 2020 actually were some of the first users of Uniswap, and everyone basically got right the Uniswap airdrop, and that was an amazing moment. And actually, when we met the founder of Uniswap, he knew who we were, right? And we were pretty surprised by that. He knew who we were, and he was really like respectful of what we had achieved together. And he remembered how a lot of the early users of Uniswap, right, were Axie players who were using it due to SLP. So always from an early, right, from even the early days, we've seen, right, like gaming, Web3 gaming is actually right the combination of gaming and DeFi, right? So making DeFi attractive on Ronin is actually not really a pivot. It's actually very much within the original vision and what we saw working all the way back from the Axie days. And so, definitely expect more, right? We have Compound, boom, that's one down. Now that we have Compound, right, it's much easier for us to pitch and to onboard some of these larger protocols because they're like, oh, wow, Compound, that's the OG, boom, right? So, a lot of this stuff, right? You need the social proof first, right? So now we have Compound. It's a big established protocol. Makes it much easier for us to go on and onboard something else. I also say that DeFi kind of shows a lot of the drawbacks of governance or decentralized governance, because like a lot of the stuff, like even if you know the founder, they're like oh yeah, we need to, I cannot make the decision, right? We need to go through the formal governance process. Um,
Yeah,
so it's kind of annoying.
that's it's like anti-startup. It makes me fall
Yeah,
asleep when they have to take it to the committee. The
yeah,
words like "let's take it to the committee" is like, yeah, you don't want to do that. I mean, you want to do that, but it's still very lame, basically. I saw there were some questions about like Roam future token utility and just like, so I do want to guys, most blockchains, they don't have an identity. The identity of Ronin is gaming first, DeFi, and then every single human being in the world coming into the chain to participate because we actually have a live player base. These other chains, like I think it's hard sometimes to even compare because they don't have the same history, they don't have the same core community as we do, and I think we have to stay true to that belief. And that's kind of really at the core of it. If you truly believe that this has meaning, that you are right in the sense that the people who use the chain, they will be able to attract more developers and then more users, then you should probably still be in the Ronin community. If you still don't believe in that and want to focus on like short-term price action and start to lose faith, that's okay too. But this industry is going to test you no matter which chain, token, investment, whatever it is that you are doing in your life. Like if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? This this world is not for the meek, I would say. So if you cannot find that conviction within yourself, then this is probably not the place for you when it comes to crypto in general. Now that isn't real talk, and you should probably take it to heart before you go out on Twitter and complain about things that is outside of your control. That's how even I think about stuff here. What is within our control? What can we focus on? Right? We focus on builders. We focus on revenue streams. We focus on users. How many people are actually playing the games, and of course, game developers. I think the Ronin use cases are clear to me as well. Like Ronin is being used as gas, which is the ultimate use case for all chains. And if you think that Ronin will scale beyond this because we will get more users in the future, these games will create their own Ronin layer twos, which then requires more locked up RON. Then yes, that does make sense. Now, for every single RON transaction that is being put into the blockchain, there's some that's being burned, which is another clear use case. And Ronin actually has clear revenue streams coming into the Ronin protocol treasury, both from the Mavis market and from OpenSea and from the Ronin name service and from Katana wallet, right? Now it just depends, like, what are we going to do with those revenue streams? And we are actively working on being able to utilize those revenue streams to the benefit of all Ronin holders. There are things that are holding us back that is outside of our control. So I'm not too focused on necessarily complaining about that, but I just wanted to share with you that things are happening in the back. But it's not like we can just snap our fingers and solve some of these like hard regulatory things. These are real, big boy problems, I would say. That's kind of beyond our control as well. So yeah, that's some kind of like real talk from me, and I think you should take it to heart before, if you feel like things are tough, right? Going out, taking a walk, like the longer you are in crypto, the harder things might seem sometimes too, because some people have been round tripping, they've made a lot of money, they've lost a lot of money, but you just have to
yeah,
stick it out, man. If you can't hold, just to quote ZZ, if you can't hold, you're never going to make it, right? That's just the truth of things.
yeah. I mean, one thing that I want to say, right, is like it's really hard, right? It's hard for us too, right? Like obviously when price goes up a lot and then goes down a lot, like we feel it, right? Like that's, Sky Mavis, right? Like the way that we succeed is by having, right, the tokens that we own alongside you guys, AXS and Run, go up in value a lot, right? Otherwise, right, like there's really no viable path to us becoming, right, what we believe that we can do. And so, times like this are really hard, right? But what has happened? What I would ask is like, what has happened every single time we've had our backs against the wall? Every time it's felt like, oh, this is finally over, right? Oh, they finally are done, right? Always, right? This community has withstood and come back from the brink of death, right? So to me, right, it's like, it's just like the GTA meme, right? Like, ah, here we go again, like boom, everyone, right? The haters are back. People are doubting, right? Like, your friends and family are laughing at you, right? My mom is worried about me. My mom just asked me if she needs to send me money. Or right, like because she knows what the price of AXS and RON is, right? So she looks at that and she's always right, like, so even for us, right? Like our parents will be concerned. Or even mad, right? Maybe our family members bought RON because we were shilling it to them, right? So we're obviously going through this with you guys, and it is painful, and hopefully, right, this is why, right, like you have to hopefully, right, like not use leverage, right, like don't put money into crypto that you need to basically survive for basic essentials. um but yeah, I also, right, like just want to, right, say that this type of situation is really hard. It's not just hard for you guys, hard for us. Obviously, right? Like you don't really get to see that all the time. But this is more of the type of venue where I feel like it's appropriate to kind of share that type of information. So
Yeah, let's cry together, says Moa in the chat. I don't think we have to cry together, but we at least have to, you know, be able to share share in the misery a little bit. I'm laughing about it too because like, what else can we do, right? Uh, it does make sense to me when I look at all the traction, right? And I'm like, wait a minute, like, why are these shit coins pumping, right? What I think then is, all right, what does Ivan on crypto say, right? You have to respect the pump, right? I mean, do we believe in karma, right? Maybe we do, right? So if you are going out and putting out negative energy into the world, being like some toxic person, you're never going to make it. I really believe that. Don't be that freaking person. And I can say that because I have a salty streak myself, but you really have to control that. And yeah, just, don't project that thing because you're going to end up like, drawing in more of those feelings and things into your life, right? So maybe that's a good place to stop it, to hold on the town hall. I think we covered a lot here. It was good to be able to see so many active people in the chat, seeing people on Twitter, and I think it's amazing to travel around the world sometimes and meet you guys in real life. Never hesitate to come up and say hi to me or Jeff or even Trung or anyone else in the Ronin team. Like, we always want to hear from you guys, what's happening, what you guys are building, what you guys are happy about. Maybe skip on the salty side sometimes. That's we see that a lot. There's actually been light on the death threats this time around compared to the last time, I think, Jeff. Like, you had a lot of those, but this time, so far we've been able to avoid that, so that's great. But definitely there is a lot of like there's a nasty side to crypto as well that I hope we can leave at home, and that we can focus on the more of the positive things that are here. So I do want to give a shout out to everyone who's still positive, who's remaining here, who's building with us, and who can see that this is something real that's happening here. So yeah, that's it from me. Any final words from you, Jeff and Ryan?
yeah, maybe so just want to leave with some kind of final thoughts on how where do I see the path to victory, right? I see many different paths to victory, right? It's kind of like Dune. But, I do see, right, solving play to earn with, right, better incentive alignment and token models, right? Whether that be app tokens or just general experimentation. Someone rightly pointed out, oh, like, why do we need that complicated system when, when Pixel Heroes Adventure has already, right, implemented something like boom. Well, it's possible that, right, ERC20 scene might not be the full answer. It might be, right, the teams building that kind of stuff a little bit more manually on their own. So fixing play to earn and figuring out the incentive model. Right, I'm super bullish on MMOs. Right, we're seeing Cambria, but we also have things like Lumitera. Runiverse is doing amazing things. I believe that, right, like Pixels has kind of retraced a lot and now basically has a lot of the expectations removed off their shoulders, right? So now I believe that they're right in a place where they could potentially do something really interesting, especially because they're going to be one of the first to start experimenting with ERC20C or app tokens. And so I believe that the Ronin MMO thesis, right? Games like Fableborn, right? Fableborn is a game that, boom, it actually plays like a game that I could introduce to my friends and family. But the Maria actually worked on RuneScape, marketplace, and the team really understands Web3, right? So don't sleep on Fableborn. They've been a little bit quiet in between seasons, but definitely keep an eye out for Fableborn. And then boom, of course, I also see, right? Most founders might not talk about this kind of stuff, right? The macro, oh, we're just right, like leaves blowing in the wind or whatever, right? The macro will be the macro. But to me, I do see, right, like the market being able to improve a lot, especially when it comes to liquidity and the riskiest assets within crypto. Before I did this, I actually ran a fund, right? I ran a global macro fund, right? That basically predicted what's going to happen in the global economy, and we made money from it. It actually did well. And the thing that I see right now is we have a lot of different catalysts that can really help out crypto. We have tax cuts in the U.S. that will likely be implemented before the end of the year. We have interest rate cuts. Right now, interest rates are the highest and most restrictive that they've ever been in my entire adult life, and they can really only come down from here. So I see interest rates being cut. I see taxes being cut. All this year, all with relatively recent or all near term results. I also see, right, that crypto is starting to decouple a little bit from stocks. And one thing that I see on my LinkedIn and when I go out is, although the people in crypto have lost a lot of money recently, the big true whales of the world are now interested in actually entering the market. They're like, okay, right, like we were pretty excited about crypto when Trump won, but we didn't want to buy that huge rally because that seemed like too much hype. This is how real investors that have billions of dollars think, right? I'm not going to deploy when there's a lot of hype, right? I'm going to wait for the first pullback. And then boom, now these billion-dollar investors that are interested in crypto are now, finally see their chance to start to deploy and start to be educated. And a lot of these investors, right, will want to have they'll want to have some narrative around why their crypto strategy is enlightened. Right, so they won't want to just buy Bitcoin or ETH or Solana, right? They'll want to be, they have some angle, right? And gaming is an interesting kind of diversification tool. So actually, right, we were just, I believe, right, added to a major exchange. Maybe like Alex can confirm if that's okay, but we're just added right to a major exchange that now basically will allow institutional investors to hold RON on that exchange.
Yeah, that's it's actually pretty interesting. I won't share it now because we need to verify it fully. Actually,
Okay.
we did get some positive news there, so I think that's great. Obviously, like working with different institutions to see if they will be holding RON in the future, I think is going to be key for us. Something that I'm focusing on as well. So with different roles in the company as well. So yeah, working with investors is always key. Make sure that they can see, hear about Ronin, about like what we're doing here. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
For sure. Okay. Yeah. So I see the path to victory, right? Through the MMOs, through the macro climate increasing, and also through right like solving the play to earn model. And so with that, right, I'll leave it at that. But it's I'm also sending strength to you guys. It's been a difficult time for me, right? Like I was kind of feeling like, I don't know, maybe you guys could tell I wasn't really feeling like my full Jiho self. But then I basically looked at things, right? Am I gonna be sad, angry, confused, right? Or am I gonna be happy, energetic, and have positive energy? If I have that energy, that's gonna spread to right everyone else, and that's actually gonna be the only way to help catalyze right a turnaround with our backs against the wall once again. So yeah, we've been here again before. You guys all know what has happened every single time that it seemed like, it might be over, right? Something bad is happening, or is this not fully working, right? Every single time we've been able to come back from that, and I don't believe that this time is any different. Why would I? We've been here for 7 years.
Guys, we've been through harder times than this too. I'm not sure if you remember the hack, guys, but one morning I woke up, we're down 600 million. Like, come on. This is nothing compared to that. So freaking stay the course. That's it. Okay. I guess I'm gonna peace out now. All right. Thanks, guys.
Alrighty. Yo, I want to say thank you to everyone who has been joining us through the Discord and also on Twitter. Everyone who has kept the chat alive, repping Ronky till the very end. And of course, I want to thank Jihoz and Psycheout. This is my first town hall with Psycheout, and they bounce off each other so damn well. I feel like my job has been done for me. I basically didn't have to do anything until the very beginning to the very end. But Jihoz, I know you were feeling tired, but I didn't feel it at all. I think you guys have both been phenomenal, such a wealth of information. So thank you both. And yeah, we'll see you all in the next one. Let's shut this thing down.
All right, thanks, Ryan.
I
Peace.